wouldn't it be nice that if tomorrow you woke up and something was different and you had to sell because you couldn't, whether it was your health or some other family thing or some other emergency or something, you needed the resource financially of what your business is providing, and you couldn't continue to run it the same way.
Welcome back, everybody. Chris G here, Hard Hat CEO. Today we're in for a treat. We're going to talk about how to not work harder and a little smarter, and all this good stuff, getting out of your way. And I have a guest. And the best part is he's down the road from me here in Missouri, Kansas City. And if you're from Missouri, you know he's on the right side of the state line. And please help me welcome David Forster. David, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. David, can you tell a little bit about yourself other than the fact you're in Missouri?
Yeah. I'm a Midwest farm kid. Grew up on a cattle farm and been outside in the dirt working with my hands since I was, learning to walk. So grew up, got into the landscape industry as a solopreneur when I was a kid, right? That's what I would call it anyway. Helping neighbors, helping local farmers, stuff like that, and just stayed in that vein. Started a landscape business with my wife when we first got married, and was growing great. We were mostly maintenance and service stuff, but we did a little bit of install, and ended up selling that one at the nudging of God to put that down and focus on our marriage, which was actually the best thing that happened to our marriage and our business ventures. Because after that, spent some time, focusing on each other, and we're able to, after that, go on and build 3 more businesses that we're able to build and exit. And here I am today, helping other business owners not make that mistake. So,
well, God does know best, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So I told you we could have a conversation. You exited some businesses. Does that mean you sold them?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
What type of business were those? Other service businesses?
Yeah. We had one of them was just a little, almost like a side project. We had a little book, online book sales business that we had a collection of about 4,000 books, and ended up selling that to another seller that just wanted to add it to his. And I said, okay, that sounds great. Let's go. But we also, the 2 more prominent was we had a landscape design build company. After we did the maintenance and a little bit of design build stuff, we started a company a few years later. A lot more trust and unity in our relationship. So my wife and I started that, and did mostly outdoor living, patios, pergolas, that outdoor construction and install stuff. And took a total swing. A few years later, we sold that one and opened a retail bicycle shop, and did that for 7 years. So that was the last 7 years. We recently exited that one. Had a little girl and decided that retail was not the life for parents of a toddler. So,
and I talk about going from a hard hat CEO, obviously, and at the end, talking about multiple streams of income, having that little money tree, and then we want to have a more orchard of money trees. How do you decide? I guess in my verbiage, how do you decide what money tree you're going to go into next?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've done it a few times now, and generally it's been it seems from the outside looking in, it looks like I made a pretty rash, quick decision, right? But I'm just an internal processor. A lot of times, by the time it comes out, it's been thought about for a good minute. But it just happens
all over. Yeah.
It happens quick, right? Most of the time, it's just either a prayer or a gut thing for me. So yeah, it's just been the right life moves and just trusting.
Sure, trusting. And I made a note here about faith and some of my one of the things down the line here. Do you think you see a need, and then you decide to go that route?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good identification of that. Something that I have passion for, and something that I've seen impact my own life has been a big decision factor for me. When we were building the landscape construction business, it was all based around family. So we really based everything on what can we build and how can we design this project to improve this person's home life,
Sure.
de-stress, mental health. If they were a busy entrepreneur or something, just giving them a space that they could really relax in. And then, or if they've got young kids and they needed activity, so we really tied it to kind of a community building and missional side of things. And then with the bike shop, that one came about after that really has nothing to do with hard hats other than helmets, I guess. Right. So,
Right.
but I went for a bike ride, mid-season one time, and I was just kind of burned out and took a week off to cool off and, get re-energized for the rest of the season. And on that bike ride, it just felt like everything fell off of me, all the stress, all the weight. And I was like, man, I got to share this with more people. So that was how that one was birthed. And yeah.
Well, I've been taught myself, and I like to, obviously, if you have a passion for it, and your bike riding is a perfect example. I like obviously keeping lower overhead low, or you don't have to have a lot of investment.
Yeah.
And I've looked at some other ones, and actually in the mulling over my process too. But what do you have now that you can use to create another stream of income that's not going to cost you a lot, or repurposing
Yeah.
the tools or whatever you have
Yeah.
what you're doing? I love those type of things. How's the time factor play when you decide what type of new business you're going to jump into?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it's based around resources.
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like? Where are we at? Whether it's the financial resources, the human capital side of it, with what kind of a team are we going to need to really do it? I look at things differently today than I did, 20 years ago, because it's
Right.
what I can physically do is changing, or what I want to physically do, and what my time looks like, with having a different family dynamic now. So, but it's looking at those resources and deciding, where that risk factor is at. I'm pretty risk tolerant, so it happens usually pretty quick.
Well, as entrepreneurs, we are definitely risk takers.
Yeah.
What when you decide to get out, is it more of an opportunity arose, a conscious decision, or was it part of the plan?
We've had a little bit of
All the
all.
above.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the first one, that was a surprise. Like, we were growing and we were doing really well. We had teams growing and customers loved us. Reputation was great. We were profitable. I was like, just thought rocking and rolling. Let's just push harder, right?
Right.
And when I had a dream that just, I woke up and I was like, what in the world? And I told my wife a couple days later, and she took a big sigh of relief. Oh, thank God. She said, I didn't want to tell you, but I've been miserable. She was running the office for me. I was doing sales and operations. She was miserable. And so when we decided to sell that one, that was like a bit of a surprise. That was a journey to walk down together to figure out, okay, what does that look like? And
Sure.
really awesome story behind that for another time. But so the second one was a little more planned. We thought of it more of like, hey, let's build this as a stepping stone. Let's keep our eyes open for the opportunity for exit. And so after that idea for the bike shop, there was a little bit of overlap time in those, but I wouldn't say the opportunity arose, but I kept my eyes open and kept my eyes and ears open with the relationships that I had. I didn't want to go through a broker. I didn't know what that would look like. I just didn't have that experience and didn't want the fees and all that stuff.
Sure.
And ended up that and the bike shop were both ready, and kept our eyes open and found a mutual connection that we had that was ready to either grow or step sideways and do it that way.
Cool. As a coach, do you have any other? So that's one of your business, right?
Mhm.
And then do you have any other business besides the coaching right now?
Currently, no. I'm kind of keeping my eyes out for that's honestly one of the ways that I kind of choose who I work with consulting and stuff is not that I'm going to, but would I want to partner, or would I want to buy this business?
Okay.
If it was, if we got these things improved and things were running smooth. And so I kind of always kind of have my eye open. I'm ready.
As coaches and consultants, as we are, you, how do you overcome your clients who want to work smart? I think they need to work harder. It's more of a mindset thing. How do
Yeah.
you overcome that? It's like, no, it's not really working. I don't want to do the cliche either. Working smarter, not harder. While it's still true, it's um, not everybody sees that. And how do
Yeah.
you get that across to them?
A lot of times it's just relating and explaining like my experiences. A lot of times my stories relate really well just because I've been there. I'm not just a consultant and a coach that's wanted to be a consultant and a coach. I've built from the bootstrap ground up. When we moved to Kansas City and started that first one, we didn't know anybody really. So it was just like, let's go for this thing. Right. So I've been at that. It's just me on a truck level. And then I've had the multiple crews and doing bigger projects and learning how to do proper, bidding and all that stuff. And the thing that we run into the most is just that as entrepreneurs, we do this because we want to do our own thing. Right.
Mhm.
And most of us in the trades, we're really just a really good technician that kind of had an entrepreneurial seizure, as Michael Gerber would say in the E-Myth. And we
Right.
started our own business, and then we had to learn the business side of it along the way. And some do better than others, but the control side of it for your team is where that key lies. And so when you can really understand that something done 80% is still way better than you doing it, having to split between 15 things, you think that you can do it better, but it's it's better for somebody to be 100% focused on it, even if they don't do it quite as well as you.
Would you agree that deep, and I guess very simplistically, that a lot of guys don't want to turn it over because of fear?
Yeah.
So what are
And
the
then,
biggest fears you see out there when we talk to contractors or anybody for that matter, any business entrepreneur, why they won't are afraid to turn it over?
yeah, I think the biggest fear I think we all have is that the quality is going to drop. It's our name attached to it. They're not going to be able to do it the same way I did it. Kind of like I was saying, that 80% versus you're the best at it because it's your baby, your name's on it.
Yep.
And it's your reputation, and they can just they can quit and go get another job. And that's so commonly thrown around. And when I don't know if it's a fear necessarily, but we aren't generally great teachers and trainers. Some are, and those are usually the guys you see that grow and they stabilize. Maybe they aren't super entrepreneurial and scale really big, but they have good solid businesses with a team that is loyal because they're just great community builders and teachers. But most of us just want to get our hands dirty, get out of the way. I can do it faster. Like, let's just get it done. And I know how to do it better. And so that training point is a little bit of a fear because it's an unknown space, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not wanting to train them, or you don't know how to train them, and that makes you uncomfortable, then the quality is always going to suffer. And then that fear just is kind of self-perpetuating.
I talk about that you got to have faith,
Yeah.
and that's my little note to myself is that you have to have faith that something's all going to work out right, and you got to
Yeah.
be prepared for it. That if it don't, you're always going to be tested, I guess. But
Yeah.
you got to have that leap, and just like if they're hiring you or I for coaching, or if they're hiring another person, they have to have the belief that this is the right decision once they made their mind up. And how often do you think faith comes into play?
I mean, for me, it's all the time,
All the
probably
time.
daily, right? If I think
What's
even,
the clients you see though?
yeah, I mean, I probably, we kind of attract what we are. And so a
Yeah,
lot of my clients are walking a pretty similar walk. So we have those conversations. But I'd say even somebody that's not necessarily, dedicated in that area of their life, whatever their faith may be, if they're just kind of, just living life
sure.
in the big decisions, that it still sneaks in there and it makes you question some things, right? So
Right.
especially on the big stuff.
Well, obviously, you and I are talking about religious faith, but you still got to have faith in something, that
Yeah.
person, that decision you're going to make.
Yeah.
that you've, and you don't want to get into the analysis paralysis part where you're just thinking about it so much that you don't
Yeah.
take any action. Over the years, what's your biggest moment of aha that, like, man, wish I'd done this sooner?
I wish I would have built systems, like got them out of my head and on paper so that I
Yeah.
could train easier and help my team understand how simple things were. Like I've always been, you know, almost lazy. Like I'm just, if I don't want to do something, I'm going to find my integrity level's there, and my detail level is high enough that it has to be done right and it has to be done well.
Mm-hmm.
But doggone it, I'm not a big guy. You know, I'm 165 pounds. I'm not like a huge guy that's been able to muscle things around. So I had to figure out efficient ways to do things, especially if I didn't want to do it. And so that moment for me was realizing SOPs and all the stuff that just makes you want to pull your hair out. And when you think about slowing down to put things together, that was the secret sauce for me.
I'm an impatient person, and I guess I could be considered lazy. I like to find the most efficient way to do it.
Yeah.
Because I hate wasting time. It just drives me nuts.
Yeah.
But got any current stories that or not even currently, any stories of success where you've come in and obviously you're not going to talk about names, but you changed somebody around and got them where they need to be?
Yeah, I mean, an easy one, I'll just use me as an example.
Sure.
When we, just mindset of, the leadership stuff, right?
Hmm.
Especially after the first business, a lot of times we can be hard on ourselves, and, like you said, I'm impatient, I'm fast paced, I'm highly detailed as well, so things have to be done like a certain way. And so I was always hard driving and stuff. And um, sometimes you have to give yourself some grace on that. I went back and I can't remember when it was, but ran into a couple of our previous employees that we're still somewhat connected with from one of the other businesses, and we were just kind of telling old stories and stuff. And I was amazed at the perspective that they had. Of It wasn't the way I saw it at all. I thought I was this hard driving like jerk that they are probably glad that I'm not around anymore.
Yeah.
And they were telling stories about how amazing it was to work for somebody that had, such level of integrity and wanted things to be done the right way, and that I had raised the bar for them. So when they went to get other jobs at other places along through their life, it made it easier. And so I've seen that in some of my clients as well. As as the owner, you got a lot on your shoulders, and sometimes you just need to give yourself a little bit of grace that people aren't seeing it as hard on you as you are on yourself. And so that's been a fun thing to see turn around for them, and just get that mindset of leadership of, uh, like, I think society today really pushes hard on, we're too hard as entrepreneurs. Like, business owners are kind of greedy and they push too hard and blah blah blah, and the toxic masculinity and all the stuff. And in the construction trades, it's kind of like we laugh at that, right? But it still sneaks its way in there a little bit with the younger generation coming in. And we think that they're soft or whatever, and it's like they're not. They'll take it. They just need some time. So yeah.
You got me off track, and I got to think about that. When you had a team, you might still have a team, I mean, but in your
Yeah,
other
right.
jobs, do you, how do you, what was your most effective way to communicate with them?
For me, it was written.
Yeah.
But so that's why I love checklists, and I love just easy, like, fill in the blank type stuff, especially if it's a repetitive. So we would use a lot of that stuff once we got systems in place.
Sure.
And then we do a weekly, you call it a lot of different names for them, but like a weekly L10 meeting if you're an EOS business guy, or a weekly sync up meeting. And we just went through the challenges, the solutions, what's our main goals, and where are we tracking on those things, and keeping everybody aligned, with just, we don't want to do a bunch of meetings, a quick huddle in the morning. Hey, reminder, here's what we got going on. Here's all your forms. And then a weekly with the team leads and stuff anyway.
Did you make the forms yourself or did you have help?
Most of them I made myself. That just kind of evolved over time.
Mm.
But thinking back to the landscape businesses, there's some other, like the National Association of Landscape Professionals and any of your industry trade organizations are going to have some really good resources somewhere.
Sure. So let's say you've got your 2 companies in, getting ready to start that third. How much of that stuff did you take from the second one over to the third one to help and just change the same concepts? You just changed the,
Oh yeah.
guess the highlights, all of it.
Yeah. I mean, you'd think going from a landscape business to a bike shop is like a totally different, right? It's not. I made a check sheet that was for our different service levels that we did for the mechanics. The way that we did our team building, the biggest change there was just inventory, which, yeah.
What's your thoughts on buying a business versus starting one from, like you said, bootstrap?
Yeah. I used to not like that idea. But I just didn't have the perspective to understand, which now with more years under my belt and looking through a couple of businesses for purchase, with the right evaluation and patience to find the right one, I think that's 9 out of 10 times I would buy versus start from scratch.
Would you find help to figure out that best company, or would you try to do it yourself?
No,
Yeah.
I would, yeah. Yes, I have some connections too that aren't necessarily. You don't have to go with a broker. It's a great way to go, especially on the
Right.
buying side, because it's not your expense; it's the seller, right? But
Correct.
if you've got some colleagues and connections that have done that before, they can at least get you started and give you a breakdown of education on what to look for.
AI. We hear a lot about AI these days.
Yeah.
How would you suggest using it in either current company or something you're going to do in the future?
Yeah. I'll start that by saying I was the guy. I've always been like a slow adopter with technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't been a fan of let's just jump in there and put all our information and stuff, right? So when AI first came around and Chat GPT and all that stuff was out, I was pretty slow to start into it. But I know there's still people who are not touching it at all. But I utilize it every day for almost every task that we do. I think the sooner you get into it, the less afraid of it you are, and you realize it's not what it's hyped up to be. It's super useful.
Yeah.
It'll save you so much time, and it can take what one person can do and amplify that. It's really not to be afraid of it to replace anything. It'll replace some things, but really, if you learn how to use it, it just amplifies what you can do, and so you get more done with less.
Sure. When you first started out, you're doing all the stuff yourself, and then you said your wife was helping in the books and so forth.
Yeah.
And you decided to get your first or couple of people or whatever start building your team. What positions did you look for first? And then how did you decide that too?
Yeah, I was just saying, do you want the what I would do now answer or the what I did answer?
Both. I love stories. Stories are,
Yeah.
Such a teaching thing. Tell me
Yeah.
what you did first, and then how you would do it today.
Yeah. When I first started hiring, I thought I just needed to duplicate myself. So I needed to get more people doing the same things I was doing, right? So if one of me can do this, I just need another one of me. So I would hire somebody that what I tried to do is hire somebody that had some skills, right?
Right.
And ended up finding out that can work. It's hard on the budget first off, and then you end up with 2 of you, and the stuff that neither one of you likes doing is still not getting done, right? So,
Amen to that.
so then I kind of, started understanding what I started in construction as a tender for a stonemason.
Yeah.
So I started thinking through oh, okay, well, let's try that method because that apparently worked for the guy I worked for, and I didn't mind doing it. I enjoyed it. I liked lifting the stones and cutting them and mixing mud and taking it up there for them. So took that approach with some younger guys that I could kind of train up. say, hey, watch me and do the heavy lifting, move the wheelbarrow. And that saved my back and my energy. And I started realizing I was the technical skill and they were just the labor. I'm like, okay, this is a good rhythm. And then, fast forward to today, I realize, let me evaluate myself. What am I good at? What should I be doing? And what do I need to hire around me to fill those gaps? And then let go of control. But by doing that, not lose control. So put systems in place for those roles, really clear role descriptions, a map of what positions we need to be the most successful, and hire for the business, not hire for the person, right?
Yep.
Sometimes we try to create these roles for guys that we love, and that's okay. I'm not condoning that.
And sometimes it's the person's in the wrong seat on the bus.
Yep.
And you just got to find them, move them to the right seat.
Yep. Yeah.
And then, yeah.
If you love them, they're probably the right person to have on the bus. Yeah. They're just might be in a wrong seat.
Yeah.
And so you still have the control you need if the right systems are in place, because you can still measure things and the accountability is still there, and everybody knows exactly what they need to be doing and where we're going. And that's been such a better, even with my team now for what we do, having each of us in our lane is so much more productive.
If I know it's just coaching on. So let's say you had other companies. And let me ask, did you ever have more than one company at the same time, or was it 7 consecutive? You did?
No, it was, yeah, we did. It was an adventure.
I'm sure it was. What if something happened to you? What would have happened?
I mean, they would have kept going for a minute, but it would have, like, eventually it probably would have just like rolled down, and there wouldn't have been the drive and the vision. So yeah,
that's true. So do you ever see yourself getting out of where you're replaced completely? Like I see, you've got a replacement CEO, and then you go do your own thing and still be in control, like you said, still get that information.
Yeah.
That way, if something does happen, it just kind of keeps going.
Yeah. And I just, it takes, that's a certain point of scale that, like, you got to get to, right?
It don't happen tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, we just never had that person there, because I loved being a part of everything. And that's, something I've learned over the years too, is like, you can still be involved and still have the passion and love. You don't have to be the one calling the shots all the time. And, I considered myself a visionary for all these years. I didn't realize how well I do the operational side until the last couple of years, how well I do it. And it took a little bit of an ego check to say that it would be okay, and that somebody else might actually be a better visionary for our businesses than me.
Could you say that one more time on my, because that's right. You're absolutely right.
I've met some people now over the last few years that just, like, the way that they see things and the way that they can cast that vision is when I feel pulled enough that I think I could follow that guy. That's when like, okay, yep, there's something different there. And if you can find that type of a personality, it's okay to let go of that, and you can still be the owner, but maybe they are the CEO that's casting that vision. Yeah.
And you're gonna pay for them. You're gonna pay for them.
Yeah.
But then that's a hard thing to, your ego is hard to let go of that.
Yeah. Especially if you've built that thing from the ground up.
Heck yes.
It's
That's just good.
And that's when it took some time to understand and really view the value of truly having an asset.
Yep.
At that point, it's an asset. It's not your business. And we all are looking for freedom when we're building these businesses. And when you realize freedom isn't really found in the grind of the day to day, that's really not what you were looking for. You can be passionate and enjoy the business and still, be involved as an owner that's not the CEO.
Sure.
And looking at that, some people, we have conversations around, am I scaling to sell? Am I scaling to transition to my kids? Am I scaling for just so I can have the ability to go travel or whatever? Because a lot of them say, well, I don't think I want to sell. I'm not interested in that.
It's
And I said,
okay.
yeah, but wouldn't it be nice that if tomorrow you woke up and something was different and you had to sell because you couldn't, whether it was your health or some other family thing or some other emergency or something, you needed the resource financially of what your business is providing and you couldn't continue to run it the same way. Wouldn't it be nice just to know that if you needed to, you can make one phone call and there would be multiple people glad to buy at full price because it runs itself so well. And when you start thinking about it that way, it's a little bit easier to start thinking about how you're structuring and how much involvement you have. And
Sure.
but I think that takes some time and maturity. I mean, when I was 25, I wasn't thinking that way at all. I was invincible and just let's rock this thing. I got time, so
It's a process,
yeah,
and you gotta get each step. And you mentioned assets. That's what I'm even forgetting now. But talk about the money tree part. That's
yeah,
we want to be an business owner, and you want that business to generate the profits, and then take those profits and buy other assets so that, like you
yeah,
said, if you don't want to today or you can't today, it's not a big deal because it's already taken care of,
yep,
and it'll just work through itself.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, David, if people want to get a hold of you, and we're going to put it down in the show notes too, but how would they reach out and find David?
Yeah. Facebook and LinkedIn. If you do the handle R David Forster, will find me. And then our website is dfscales.com. And that will show, a little bit of background, a little bit about what we do now and how we help contractors. So
Sure. Now, DF also stands for your initials, but it also stands for something else. What's the DF?
yeah, Defined Frameworks is the name of the company. And just a quick reason on that is I think every owner has a way of thinking, and that's the defined way that you think, and the way you think is your framework. So defined framework. And we like to pull that out of your head and start creating your systems based on that so that your team can start thinking the same way you do and make decisions the way you make decisions. And there's no more of the hey boss, what do we do calls.
Cool.
So
And as always, down in the show notes, if you want to get with a free breakthrough session with me, go to hardhatceo.com. The link's in the show notes. Get a breakthrough session. We'll talk about what we talked about today with David, anything else on your mind with your business. And as always, join our Facebook group, Hard Hat the CEO, and the link is in the show notes below. David, thank you very much.
thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Sure have enjoyed our meeting today. All right, guys. Bye-bye.